Well, welcome to this, our very last discussion together in Old Testament Lit. I wanted to take just a brief time to talk about the final exam and whether or not you are exempt from it or not. So let's dive right in. So this is the review for final for BIB 222 Old Testament Lit Spring 2020. And this is our final very short lecture. So right off the bat, there's a question, does everyone have to do the memory verses? And the answer is yes. Everyone must attempt the memory verses. And so that's Ezekiel 36, 22 through 36. And this should be in a translation of your choosing. Really good ones are ESV, NIV, New Living Translation, or the King James Version if you would like. Or if you want my very literal translation, you can get it through the link on the website. This assignment is 15 verses, and you need to turn in that by Wednesday, May 6th at 8 a.m. That's the start of the final exam period. If you're a graduating senior, you need to turn that in by 6 p.m. on Friday, May the 1st. And to do this, you're writing out the verse from memory alone. So this isn't, you start and then you go back and look and you come back and write it. No, it's you and a piece of paper, and you sit down and you type out or write out as much as you can of it. And then at the bottom, you pledge that this is your work and your work alone. And when you sign your name at the bottom, I'm taking you at your word that you did this, that you did not look at anything else, that this is completely from memory, and I'm taking you at your word, and your word's your bond. So you can sit down and write down as much of it as you can, and that's for every single student needs to do that, whether you're a graduating senior or just a regular student. And so if you're a regular student, that's due by the start of the final exam period, 8 a.m. on Wednesday. Now, the question, just to reiterate this, the memory verses are worth 150 points. So if you choose not to do the memory verse at all, that's a significant portion of your final grade. So make sure you don't skip that. Make sure that you do that. And it needs to be uploaded before the final starts, and you type it out or write it out by hand and then upload that file on the appropriate link. Now, the pressing question then today is, am I exempt from the final exam? So we have the same agreement that we started the semester with, and that is any student who has attended all the lectures or watched all the videos for an excused absence will be exempt if. So what that means is, to be exempt from the final exam, you have to have been at all the lectures or watched all the lectures with an excused absence. So we've, we had the regular thing with the and the YouTubes for the excused absence, and then if you watched the video and you posted the forum post and one reply, if you've done that for every single time that we've met, so we met, this will be the 36th time. If you have perfect attendance, that's the first requirement, or you've made it up by watching the video. And if you have at least a 27 out of 30 average on the weekly notebooks. So we will have done 12 notebooks, and you get to drop 2 of those weeks. So for 10 of the notebooks, you've scored at least a 27 out of 30. So you have an average for those 10 notebooks, and it's at least a 27 average. And the last requirement is you score at least a 90% on the memory verses. So if you've come every day, if you've done the homework, and you can recite the verse from memory at least 90%, then you're exempt. You don't have to take the final exam. So I told you at the very beginning, this is a shameless bribe on my part to have you come every day to class and to do your homework. And of course, you get the bright space going to drop the two lowest automatically. So if you do all that, if you have that A average on the memory verse, on the homework, and you've been in class, or online, you've done the forum post, then you're exempt. You don't have to take the final exam. So for all of those who are exempt, well done. Thank you so much for taking my class. It's always such a pleasure to teach this class. So thank you, and thank you for your hard work, and enjoy your summer. For those who need to take the final, so you haven't been in class every time, or you may have turned in the homework assignments, but they've been late or something like that, then the exemption doesn't qualify you to be exempt. You'll need to take the final exam, and you'll need to have that completed and turned in by 10 a.m. on May 6th. Now, you can do it whenever you want, but it needs to be in by May 6th at 10 p.m., and that's on Wednesday. And the exam's from memory, no Bible, no notes. You have 2 hours to take it, but it's your work, and you're going to pledge that it's your work. Now, in a circumstance like this, there's no way for me to see if you're good with your word, but I'm trusting you, and I'm expecting you to be true to your word, because you're going to sign at the end of that, hey, I did this on my own, by memory, and so there's no, I'm just going to look at someone else's test to see. If you do that, that's plagiarism, and it should result in a failing grade for that assignment. But I'm going to trust you. But don't do that. Don't look at anyone else. This is your work, and you are signing your name, saying that this represents what you have done with your memory. So you'll do that, and I'm trusting you to do that. So what does the test look like? Well, this is what the test looks like. So if you go to week 12 and you pull up this document, this is a Microsoft Word document, and what I want you to do, let's see, I think there are eight questions here. So what I want you to do is we'll come to the first question, and it's who is God according to the Old Testament? This answer should incorporate material from the class lectures. It should talk about God as gracious, God as just, God as creator, Elohim, Yahweh, God of the Mosaic covenant, God of the New Covenant. And what this question isn't is, okay, you look at this question and then you go to Google and you paste God, who is God according to the Old Testament, and then you kind of give what Google says. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for what we talked about in class. This test is about what we talked about in class, and it's your understanding of that. So by all means, you can go back and look at your notes. You can go back and look at the videos. But this test is examining what we covered in class, and it's helping test your attention to what we covered in class. And so you can see you've got a page there, and you can start typing, and how well you answer this according to what we covered in class, that's how I'll grade it. So the second question is, according to the class lectures and readings, what is the eschatological expectation of the Old Testament? So we've talked about this, and a number of times we had a particular lecture on it. That's what I'm looking for. I don't want, you just say, oh, well, my friend did this and I just looked at his work just to see what he said. That's plagiarism. That's cheating. This is what you remember. This is your understanding from your attendance to the lectures and you're watching the video. And I'm expecting, kind of a full page answer there. Third, outline Genesis 1-3 with significant observations on the text and how that text is used in the rest of the Bible. We've talked about this over and over and over again. So just tell me what you're able to recall from those class periods. How do the stories in the Old Testament build on one another? We've talked about this a great deal in the lectures. So what have you remembered about that? Do not go to Google and paste in and read what Google says. This is about what you understood from this class and your interaction from the lectures. And if you do, go to Google and paste something in, and I see it, I have no choice but to regard that as plagiarism, and you would fail this assignment. You may fail for the course. So don't do that. This is what you understood from the class, your notes. You can go back and look at the lectures. You can look at your notes, but this is your work. This is not somebody else's work. This is your work. 5, outline the basic chronology of the Old Testament as it appears in the text of the Bible. We've talked about this a number of occasions in the lecture. Put this down, anything that touches on that, and that's what I'm looking for. How does the New Testament develop Old Testament elements? My goodness, we have talked about this every single class. So, you could write for weeks on this based on what we've talked about in class. 7, how does Ezekiel 36:22-36 relate to the New Covenant and to a whole Bible biblical theology? We've talked about this a number of times in the class. I want to see what you remember and what you understand. And then the last question is just one sentence summary. Creation of the world, creation of Adam, the fall, 2 genealogies, Noah's flood. So just what are these chapters about? And then the last thing I want you to do is to pledge that you have done this. You have not looked at anybody else's work. You have not looked at the internet. This is your studying of the material that we covered in this class. So want to say thank you very much for taking my class. I appreciated your hard work. I pray that even this final exam will be a means of grace for you as you put the pieces of this story together, and I'll look forward to talking to you very soon. So thank you.